So I used a piece of the other race and I cut a slot in it so that way I can get it back out. I'll show you the other one when we get it set up here. This side's nice, it sits down in there a little bit, makes it a little easier to get lined up. I'm taking the old race I got cut, slot in it. So with that slot cut in there, that bearing just comes right out. Clean those bearing bores real closely. Seat it all the way down in there. Sit. It's all the way down in there. This one doesn't go down that far in, but still helps that that doesn't get stuck in there. That race is all the way down in there. We're ready to go. This is the ScotSeal XL. It's for 84 Wanderlodge PT40. So, manufacturer's instructions tell you to glue the outside of the seal. Normally you don't do that. This seal, you do. You'll see why. The seal does not require any special installation tool. Put it on there. Push it in. spins, so it's fine. That's all there is to it. So I drove in new bushings here for the brakes, installing the new here's nickel anti-seize. Tell you that. Plenty anti-seize on here. Anti-seize on there. Got those in place. So you got these little guys. They got to go in the brake to hold the brake shoe or the brake spring. You just set them in there like that, and then he's not wanting to go. Need a bigger hammer. There she goes. So that sits right down in there. That's what the spring hangs on. Go. Brand new Haldex brake shoes. I don't know if you can see the number on that. It's worn off of that one. It's like GG4524QMR. So that's the brake shoes. Bottom ones are kind of a pain because of this. Anywhere you get 2 points that sit together, you need to put anti-seize. these two springs that hold the backside. The hook in here. Get some anti-seize on here. Probably gotta go ahead and do this side. Look at the other one too. Let's go. Oh, there she goes. Of course, flips over. The trick with these is kind of roll it in place. Backside, go ahead and hook these springs. Get your side around. I should have almost hooked them from that side. There we go. Hook them on here. Oh yeah. This one's not wanting to cooperate. Probably because I'm trying to video this, it never goes smoothly. Hooked hook, put it in there, and you just roll it up over the top and pull that spring in. I haven't backed off I need to back off the slack adjusters, but good. We'll go ahead and get the front springs on. I think these spin, but I guess not much. It's going to want to hold it. Big screwdriver. Use that big screwdriver to guide it back there. Try to get hooked on there. Whoop, not quite. There it goes. Thing is weird because it's wanting to turn that sideways, but tell me that that's supposed to go that way, so it goes around the S-cam. So big pry bar.
The other one?
That's in. I already have anti-seize on the brake shoe itself. Just taking a big medium-sized pry bar, stick it in behind the shoe, and then picking the shoe up against the spring. And I gotta back the S-cams off yet. Bar slipped out. It's in there. And then you gotta, this little spring goes into these holes here. So it clips and holds that roller, S-cam roller. Now I gotta try to get my name. He's stuck in there. Oh, I like that too much. There it goes. Alright, there we go. That's, I had to kind of pull on that thing. They call this a suitcase handle. And like I said, it's designed to clear the S-cam. So, I guess the hole in this brake shoe must be a little bit further forward or something. Or it needs that to clear. A little bit different than the other one. But that's the brakes. I said all I gotta do now is back that S-cam off and, so the drums will fit. Okay. Alright, so we got to back the slack adjusters off. These particular slack adjusters, you cannot back them off until you got to remove this little, it's the ratcheting mechanism. So you got to pull this completely out before you back them off, otherwise you'll ruin the slack adjuster. See, it's got little teeth on there. I don't know if you can see those. That's got to come completely out. Careful, there's a little copper washer on there, don't lose that. And don't set it in the dirt. So then that takes a 3/4 inch drive socket. Then you need a 12.58 socket on the bottom of the slack adjuster, and that will allow you to move the slack adjuster. So if you look over here, you'll see me backing the S-cam back to its original position. So we're going to bring it all the way back till those S-cams fit in right there. And then come back around, reinstall the If you look at this, it's got a flat side on it. So when you install it in the box, you gotta make sure you get that flat side lined up inside that hole. Pretty much won't go in there unless you got the flat side lined up. Once you line the flat side up, it'll go in there. And then you can tighten it back down. If you ever do the rear brakes, the drive axle brakes on the Wanderlodge PT, it is a pain to get to this, to do this. Snug that up so it's grease tight. And we're good. And then we'll do the brake adjustment once we get the drum on. And that's it. Now your dog snot. Trying to keep it clean. So if you look, come on in here. This spindle had a seal saver on it. I had to get that off of there. Usually you just use a ball peen hammer, but this has got this little trim ring, so I had to end up using a screwdriver under it carefully, not to damage the spindle. It damage on this spindle is not as critical. You still don't want any burrs or any rough spots on there. So I cleaned all this up with a Scotch-Brite pad, make sure it was nice and smooth. I cleaned the bearing race surfaces with Scotch-Brite pad, prep everything to get it ready. So if you look down here, the reason that's not as critical is this is a 2-part seal. So, and you lube these seals up and it actually grabs the spindle and the seal spins on itself. I can get it to turn. I don't know if you can see that, but so the seal does not, I pulled it out a little easier. See, the seal spins within itself. So then it actually grabs the spindle at the back. So you just lube this up and stick it on, and it rides up onto the spindle here, and it grabs on, and then the 2 seals spin in itself, so the seal surface is never spinning on this spindle. So it's a pretty neat seal. These are called ScotSeal XLs, and if you saw in the video earlier, I just installed them by hand. They don't need a special tool. They're great. So we're going to prepare the outer bearing so we're ready to go once we get this guy in there. The outer bearing. So I'm going to take this outer bearing and fill it with oil. Appropriate gear oil. Make sure you look at whatever your book is for yours. This one recommends you can do, depending on temperature you're normally running in, but they do recommend a higher weight oil if you can stand it. So I'm doing the 85-140. But you want to preload this hub with oil, or this bearing. Make sure it's got plenty of oil in it. So it's coming out the sides. I just keep it in the plastic, keep it clean. So when I set this spindle up on there, I got it ready to go. Sorry. Alright, so I'm going to carefully set the spindle up here, got my nut ready. You don't want to drag this thing too much and make sure it gets lined up properly. And make sure I got a good amount of oil on this back side here. So these seals, they tell you, normally you do not put oil on these seals when you drive them in. So the ScotSeal XL tells you to drive it on with oil, so, or put it on with oil. There we go. Gotta be very careful putting this guy on there. So I can see we're gonna have a problem already. That guy. That's not gonna be good. I might have to index that thing out of the way. Might have to come out. Okay. So what I'm noticing is this suitcase handle on this thing, it's got to turn. It's going to be hitting the hub. You definitely do not want that. It'll rub right through that thing and you lose your brakes. So we'll have to let me get a big screwdriver. See if I can turn this guy. Have to pull that hub back off for a second. See if I can fix this. Try not to drag it on anything. Sucker's heavy. There we go. Oh, dang it. The problem I'm having is these springs are not indexing kind of right direction, seems like. So they need to go like that. See if I can get that sucker to grab him in. I may have to pull one of those these guys back out. Pull those guys out. Try to see if I can turn this sucker. It's got a turn on there. I need those hooks to be kind of turned both like that. Like a plier or something. All right, so I got that. I had to kind of get a pair of pliers and turn these springs on this. If you can get in here and see. So a little trick I use the screwdriver as a guide to kind of slide that spring back up under. Then it pops right back on the screwdriver out and it's hanging on there. So it looks like my parts man warned me about this. This is a new design. So this, it's got to, looks like it's got to come out so it doesn't hit the hub, or the S-cam clears it. So I think we're good now. We'll get these other little rollers, the S-cam rollers, back in there to get the big pry bar. So we'll put these. Get this sucker. Pick up. This brake spring is tough. Stuck under there. Sugar shack. Sugar shack. Alright. So that should get in there. Alright. Get that sucker in there. Those clips in there. Down. Should get the clips into place. Alright, she's all good now. Alright, rollers are back in the spot they need to be. Put a little bit of Alright, so that guy's now where we want it. Should be clear of everything. We could try to put the hub back on again. There she is. Let's get this outer bearing. Get all that oil back in it. Right. Squirt a little oil back in here. Oops. Probably need to fill that. You know what I probably should do? Alright, so we're torquing the nut to preload the bearings. So this is 200 foot-pounds. So you got to spin it and torque it. 200 foot-pounds. I'm going to turn it full half revolution. Off. So we're now going to re-torque it to 50 foot-pounds. Spin it. And torque it while we're spinning it. It's clicking there, it's hard to hear. So we're at 50 foot-pounds. Then we back it off a quarter. Alright, so then we back it off a quarter turn. Now, it's easier said than done. So we're going to put the, this is the locking plate. So the one thing with the locking plates, you see there's a tit down here. Up under here. So if it doesn't lock into it, just flip it over. It'll most likely lock in. So that's what you got to do. And then you can put your washer on there and the outer nut. And in that outer nut, I believe it gets torqued to 250 foot-pounds. Alright, so we have the dial indicator set up on the hub. So you can see I put the magnetic base on the hub face and then the dial indicators on the center of the spindle. This is for a 84 Wanderlodge, so you want to read your book. They require no more than 1/1000 to 10/1000 in machinist talk in play basically on this. So you have to grab both sides of the hub and pull on it and just check. So now I'll go ahead and torque this since I'm good on the in play. Torque the outer nut I believe it's 250 foot-pounds. I've got to go back to the book and read it. But alright, I'm torquing the outer nut. It says between 200 and 300 foot-pounds, so I'm going to go with 250 foot-pounds. That's it. Double check my setting. That's a 2 1/4 inch nut, so they tell you to use 200 to 300 foot-pounds. And then we'll fold over the tab here. Alright, so we got the tab folded over. See there? I beat up that other nut a little bit. So that's ready for the cap to go on.